stormwater and other effluent that goes into the ground and that goes into the lake streams and rivers that we have. So the deadline for getting this done in all the cities was back in December of 2016. Many cities complied, some cities didn't. And Medina is one of those that didn't comply, and there's some reasons for that. It doesn't really matter. They've been working with Ecology off and on this for a period of time. I've only been here, obviously, this year, so I don't kind of know what's been going on this year. But we did meet with Ecology in May, and they issued a warning letter. So this is one of the steps, the enforcement steps that they take, because their goal is to get everybody to comply. They don't really want to file a lawsuit. They don't really want to spend their time in court. They really want us to adopt these low-impact development regulations. So the warning letter was kind of you've reached the end of our string, and you need to start doing something about it. So they proposed what's called an agreed order, and those are typically used as enforcement tools. And the reason for them is to commit the department as the enforcement agency and the city as an entity, governmental entity obligated to comply with law, to actually do it and establish some deadlines, and then take real enforcement action, fines, penalties, lawsuit if you don't do that. The agreed order is called an agreed order because when we are finished negotiating it, it will get signed, and the Department of Ecology will file it with the court. So they'll file a lawsuit and simultaneously file the agreed order which resolves the lawsuit. So there are good points and bad points about the agreed order. The first one they sent to us wanted compliance by December 2018. And so this was in May and June. They were talking to us about this, and we knew that we wouldn't be able to do that. And so Ryan and Michael and I went and met with the Department of Ecology about more or less, and had a fairly cordial negotiating session. And the bottom line is that we got Ecology to extend the deadline out to May 30th of next year, May 30th of 2019. And so the agreed order is still in the process of being negotiated, and there's lots of terms and conditions that are under discussion. I don't want to bore you with all of the details, but we're talking about Department of Ecology's jurisdiction and enforcement authority. They want us to concede those things, and there's appropriate levels of concessions, and there's appropriate levels that aren't. They want us to take corrective actions, compliance schedule. They had envisioned a different process that the staff had envisioned in terms of getting this done, and so we convinced them that our program was better. It might take a little bit longer, but would result in a better set of low-impact development regulations at the end of the day that had presented to the community and appropriately considered by the Planning Commission and the City Council in a mechanism that we'll talk about a little bit later. In return, they want us to send them monthly progress reports as we produce work by the Planning Commission and the City Council, and stipulate some penalties if we don't actually meet these goals. And there are general provisions that talk about dispute resolution and enforcement and all of that sort of thing. The schedule, we'll talk to you a little bit more in detail, but while May 30th is the established deadline, that's the established deadline for Ecology to approve what the city has adopted. Our real deadline internally is to get this set of low-impact development regulations approved by the middle of April. By April 15th, we would like to have those completed. The Department of Ecology would like to have those completed. Yes?
The March 2019 City Council meeting is the 11th, and the April 2019 City Council meeting is the 8th. How come these are the dates?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
These dates here are after our monthly City Council meetings, which means that if it goes to us on March 15th, we're not going to see it until April.
Oh, right.
And if it goes to April, we're not going to see it until have us here until May.
Yeah, we're actually, so think of it as you're going to see it the month before that deadline.
Okay.
But the object is
Because the City
so this is going to be a round and round process for about 6 months, 5 months, while we look at those. You'll give feedback to the planning commission. It'll all ideally get adopted at the end of the day in a consensus manner, and then we will be perfectly poised in April, or perhaps even sooner, if this is a really smooth process, to take action in March. So, I'm done. And if anybody has some questions, I'll answer them, even though I'm not supposed to. Wait till the end of this.
So I know you said it wasn't important why was the deadline in 2016, but I would still like to know why was the deadline in 2016.
Yeah, I just understand it was due to city business and
Right.
the trade-off between staff and whatnot, but Michael can address that.
I'll be happy to address that. I mean, the bottom line is there's only so many hours on planning commission's day when they meet once a month. And we were creating everything from tree code to sunlight, to view of sunlight and construction mitigation plans. And it simply didn't make it that high on the work. We've had, as Scott said, some real cordial meetings with our friends at the Department of Ecology. They're not fighting us or anything. They said their goal is to get compliance. Their goal is to get us to adopt regulations. And so they put together this work plan with us in cooperation with us for us to be able to do the work.
It seems odd that, I don't remember it being on our work plan when I was in city council.
Planning.
Planning
It was discussed in terms of, it's out there, they deal with it, let's get the consultants on board, that's what I recall. And we did that, that we just said there's, as I recall, there was no way to fit it into the schedule, but we were gonna get the consultants on board, at least, get that going, so.
Just seems weird that something that's due, you just push it off.
It's a real soft deadline.
Okay.
So, just based on the sense I'm getting from the room, maybe one to do is to make sure that if there are these sorts of deadlines, I know we switched, people, so maybe we can just make sure that those, we're aware of all of those and that they're ticked for us, and we make sure that we,
But one of the first things that you're gonna get back from staff is gonna be an actual calendar. To Jen's point, the 15th and the 14th, the 15th of April and the 15th of March and the 30th of May are obviously, dates in the middle or the end of the month. They are designed to coordinate with our meetings with the planning commission or city council.
right.
And that's the thing we're gonna be putting on our own.
Okay, that's understood, those are DOE dates. I think we're saying, I'm sensing something bigger. I'm saying, if there are these sorts of federal or state law obligations, let's make sure that we're advised of them and get them on the calendar, make sure that we plan backwards to make sure we don't have them.
Is this one of our priorities for the planning commission this year? Or do we have to come up with that? No?
We might have to.
I'm surprised then that it would have gotten this far without it being brought to our attention when we voted on the priorities.
Well, we put priorities, anything that's required by law will take priority, and this is by law.
Yes.
I do recall Robert saying this has to get done this year because
It's like,
required.
okay,
And he actually happened to do this same argument right now. So
okay, great,
that was mentioned.
okay.
to create less stormwater. I like to call this prevention. So we want to replicate what it was like here in Medina when this place was covered in forests. And
So
when,
before it was farms.
right. And we don't have photographs of that. The farming photograph from 1915 was the best we could do. So how do we replicate what it was like when there were forests
so how do they interplay with each other?
Yeah, sometimes there are conflicts, and part of this process is, the process is a discussion to determine what is the best thing for your community, what fits with your goals and desires, the character of the city, the other regulatory, the full regulatory context that you're working within. So it's a conversation, and sometimes there's give and take. So each city does this differently.
people who came late, this is just to make sure everybody's up to speed from an educational perspective of what low impact development means, what the options are, and then there's a process that they'll educate in more detail, planning commission and the city council, so we'll have some time to get on that.
That's right. There's no, we are not giving you any recommendations during this meeting, so none of this is anything we're recommending right now.
Sounds good.
Great. So parking area reduction is another common way to reduce impervious surface coverage. So this is one that is particularly not applicable to Medina, but just to give you an example, parking lots, big malls where there's all this parking that maybe only fills up at Christmas. Is there a better way to handle that? So that's the type of thinking they're asking us to engage in for this process. Is there something else we can do besides building a 20% bigger parking lot that only gets full for 2 weeks a year? Is there another way? Is there another way from a wider street? And in this case, one of these examples also shows you a new way to manage runoff from your You do have a limitation on impervious cover on private property, yes.
And so this would be for public property, is that the difference?
No, it's public and private.
So, I just have kind of a high level point. Do we actually have to do anything, or we just have to consider doing things? Do we look at our code and say, yes, this is good code, and does that satisfy the corporate requirement? Or does the agreement that we're about to sign with the Department of Ecology require us to do something?
Yes, you actually have to do something. But there's a range, and what Trish was trying to tell you is that it depends on cities, like cities that are brand new, right? Because the city turned into one quick in here, and this city and a country had lots of empty land. So when it did 10 acre subdivision, it could preserve this area of land over here and not let the traffic run it down, and they could put rain garden over here. Medina is different, it's built out, it's mostly small lots. Most of the redevelopment is of a house on that lot. So there are not very many opportunities here like there are in other cities that weren't developed. And so we've been meeting, the staff has been meeting for the last 3 or 4 5 months to talk about what the code provides, what ecology would like to see, and how can we find opportunities in the code to do things that would achieve the goals that ecology wants, while still enabling the appropriate, development. I want to tear a house down and build a new house, that sort of thing. So the limits are different here, but we still do have to do something. We can't not do anything, although just wind up in court and spend a bunch of money on these little things.
So you're saying something. We do.
I really think though, that given the fact that many of us are aware of, cognizant of our impervious surface rules, that we have rules about retention and restoration of native vegetation swells, and we have a lot of this, so I think it would have been helpful for context for many of us here to understand how far off are we from what is required, because I feel like we're already pretty darn strict.
Well, here's the thing that I think the reason I sort of questioned this picture back here is Medina has roads, right? But we have a lot of private driveways. For example, to get to my house, you go up an asphalt driveway past another house, and then you travel on more asphalt to my house. So as far as I know, we have no incentive in our code for that to not be asphalt. We treat asphalt and gravel both identically under the code as impervious surface. And that's a lot of what our coverage in Medina is those routes to people's houses and so on. So I don't think that we've really looked at whether that is a solution and whether maybe there should be an incentive to use one of these other things that you've got drawn here instead of just a pure asphalt driveway. So I guess that's not really a question, but more of a unique to Medina situation and maybe an opportunity to provide some incentives to our development that might get us closer without tearing up our roads and building new ones.
Just a real quick question. When we did pass the stormwater management manual, to me, as I recall, that went, part ways towards addressing a lot of this. And can you tell us, either Scott or Krista, how far does that take us? Is that a quarter of the way to meet the overall requirements, half the way, 3/4, or 1/8?
It's 2 separate requirements, so they are in the same universe. You've met one requirement in that universe. You have not made any, well, we are in the process of meeting the second
could, maybe speaking to your point, maybe that could help create a framework for early discussions.
So are you asking who you think ecology approves of best or is most satisfied with?
No, we want to, I think we want to create a world-class version of LID. And is there a model, either locally, in the state, or nationally, that we can look at
Well, we'd like to do
to,
that.
to inspire our discussion? Because
There are
as you
world-class
said,
models
there's
here.
amazing opportunities for us. And is there something you can, so really it's just a general question. Is there
Seattle, Kitsap County.
I think it'd be a good idea though to get your direction on the city council before we decide the market world best.
Well, I think he's just asking for, are there things we can leverage, are there best in class that we can leverage without starting from zero?
Examples.
That's exactly it.
There are definitely examples. Some examples are what you might characterize as minimum compliance, and some are world class. I think we've chosen to look at what we're calling your peer cities, not for their performance on this, meeting this requirement, but because of their similarity to you. And those are Clydeville and Sierra Point.
We basically wanted to look at the points communities and Richmond. And that was kind of our, and to David's point, let me give you the bureaucrat answer.
Right.
The bureaucrat answer is that state regulatory agencies have a big chart with the name of every city in the state on it.
Yeah.
We want to get a check next to our name.
So what would help me, just because of the way my brain works, is to know what done is. Right, I like to think it's done. Or interesting.
Done means submitted. And,
That means a council vote.
Yeah, it means a council vote, staff prepared report, consultant prepared report, submitted to the Department of Ecology.
Okay, we've got less than 30 seconds left, so questions
Sorry,
before we.
that's the bureaucrat answer.
I have two quick questions. Can we consider going to 2 meetings a month to get this workload done? And number two, I don't need an answer now, but I'm going to put in a request now in front of the council. Number two is, I'd like for an answer to this in the near future that addresses the amount of our impervious soil that is impervious. It's not pervious. It's clay. It doesn't accept infiltration or any other thing, and it's really become a problem to meet the other standards that we're supposed to meet in drainage design,
Right.
stormwater management. And is that taken into account in the recommendations or the report? I don't
Yeah.
need the answer now. I just want to make sure that that's taken into account.
Let me answer your first question, and thank you for asking. Absolutely, we would love for the planning commission to meet twice a month for the next couple of months to get through this. Understand you have a number of construction mitigation plans, other things on your work plan as well, that we know that we need to get to. So one of the things that Steve's working on is putting together a calendar for you, which we'll talk about at your next meeting, but it very well likely could mean that you're going to have 2 meetings a month. Now, your next meeting, your December meeting is scheduled, I believe, for the 25th of December. So we may have to try to move that.
Yeah.
Okay, so to be considered everybody's time. Other quick questions, or we should adjourn to the regular city council meeting? Okay, thank you all for coming. If you have more questions, feel free to send them to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Drew, do you see anybody up there?
A couple of people that were meeting before you.
But not Jessica or Jennifer? we're just waiting on one person before we start. Thank you for your patience. Okay, well, I'm sure she'll be back in just a second. Let's get started. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the Medina City Council. We're now transitioning into the regular meeting of September 10th. Ms. Kellerman, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Roger Frey.
Here?
Councilmember Jennifer Carone.
I'm here.
Councilmember David Lee.
Here?
And for the record, Councilmember Alex Marcos is absent. Councilmember Sherry Nguyen.
Here.
And Deputy Mayor Jessica Rossman is here. And Mayor Cynthia Adkins.
Here. Thank you very much. Without objection, Alex Marcos is excused. Any objection? Hearing none by consensus, he is excused. Thank you. Any changes to the meeting agenda tonight? Without objection, it's approved as proposed. We'll go into the public comment period. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward to the presentations. Mr. Blasey, would you like to go first with Park Board?
Might as well.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. I did put a report in your packet. I'm hoping everyone read it and digested it, because that's what I want to talk about. Basically, the park board hasn't really been asking for a lot recently. We've done a few minor projects. As you know, I've talked a lot about our watering campaign up at Fairweather. But tonight, I'm going to ask for some real council support on a project that we've been working on for 2 years. And I think we listened to the council. We have done due diligence. We found a project over in Laurelhurst, right next to the Horticultural Center, the UW. They came over, both people from the UW as well as they call them Friends of Laurelhurst. And they built with a conservation group, basically kids, a boardwalk through Yester Swamp, and they call it the Yester Swamp Project. We took a field trip, the park board went over there. This was in 2017. And then we haven't publicized it, but we had to put $10,000 in the budget to get a realistic concept. Is this feasible? Is this cost effective? How much is it really going to cost? We didn't want just a number pulled out of the hat. So we've done all this work. It's taken about 2 years, and we really need to keep the momentum, I guess would be the best way to phrase it. We needed $30,000 to do a set of construction drawings. This is a small bite of a big apple, I know, but that's the only way we can keep this project on track, or it'll just completely fall off the table and everyone will forget about it. And I think it's the only park space that we really can use effectively today. We aren't going to buy, a lot next to Medina Beach Park. We aren't buying property. We don't have money. We know that. So this is the budget season. The budget, as you know, gets finalized in December. It's usually done by November. So I thought this was a perfect time to come down and pitch and ask for money, because I haven't done that. And I think it's time that I did. And I think it's for a good cause, a good reason, and it's not a whole lot of money. When I was on the council, just to give you a little history, we used to routinely give the park board $50,000 a year, and we didn't even care where it went. It was just like, here's the money, and take it and do something good with it. So I don't think $30,000 is a lot. At our last park board meeting, we went over the budget, and I know Ryan has certain gates he has to make as Public Works Director to advance things, so I might not have made that first gate. But I think making an appeal to the city council is in a timely manner. September is a good approach. So that's what I'm asking tonight, and I'm here to answer any questions anyone might have, but I'm hoping for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Blazy. Questions? Yeah.
You have any idea how the whole project may cost?
We do.
It's actually in your.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, there's two parts. Ryan put the actual hard numbers, and I gave sort of a brief synopsis, but of the lower end. But basically, it ranged from about $760,000 to 1.2 million, depending on how you build the boardwalk.
How long is the walk?
1,200 feet. 1,200 feet. And it's in and this is something interesting. The people, Dr. Fred Hoffer, who was Friends of Laurelhurst, went through that little woodsy area that we have right next to the park and said it's a perfect forest swamp, just like the Yesler swamp was. So it's 1,200 feet. And that's a reason, it'd sort of circle around and then come out near the Public Works shack.
We
I don't
just,
mean to say shack. Public Works building, I guess is a better way.
Public
Or
Works
facility.
Castle.
I don't want to lose all my support, you know what I mean?
We just met with OTAC, who were talking to us about stormwater and the preservation of vegetation and stuff like that. This looks like it would result in the removal of trees, and how do we balance what we just heard
Well,
about?
you could snake it around. I think there's a permitting process involved, just talking to Ryan. There'd be a permitting to make sure, because it is a wetland of some sort, and you don't do anything around here without a permit. So I think there's a permitting process, but I don't know exactly what it is.
And how much would it cost us to maintain this, given the fact that we don't maintain Fairweather, the tree part, because of budget? So what would this do to spread out our budget even more?
How much it would take on a yearly basis to maintain the boardwalk? I really don't know. Brian, do you have an idea? I walked the boardwalk in the Mercer Slough, and it's a lot longer than 1,200 feet, and truthfully, I don't think any maintenance is done on it. It's pretty solid. I think it's a little slippery when it gets wet, but other than that, they use really good wood, and I haven't seen any decay or problem areas, but I'm just speculating here.
Are those the sort of details that we would come to know if we approve the next stage? The sorts of, the cost to, get firmer cost to build, figure out how much it costs to maintain, figure out if we can comply with the low-impact development.
And have we talked to the neighbors about how they feel about this?
What's your question?
Are those the sorts of details that we would obtain if we went forward with the next phase?
I think it's a process, and yes, you would obtain those
Yeah.
as you went along, but I'm just afraid that, if we put this out a year and a half or 2 years, we'll all forget about it.
But you
So
want
I'd
30,
like to keep things alive, essentially.
but you were asking for $30,000 to do architectural drawings
To
for,
do the drawings of the actual boardwalk.
Maybe
Right.
draft construction drawings.
And the UW gave us their drawings, so we wouldn't be starting from ground zero. At least we have a little bit of a head start. They were very nice to give us their drawings. And they came over and they explained some of the engineering feats that they used when they built the Yesler Swamp
what's the
project.
benefit, though, of getting architectural drawings if we still have a lot of other questions to be answered before we get there?
Well, there's always going to be questions, I'm sure.
True. So what benefit is there to get architectural drawings? Like, what does that do? Does that start the permitting? Are we going to use that to start the permitting process? What's
I would
the,
have to ask Ryan, would we get the permit before we do the drawings?
And that would be part of we would find out what permits it would require to get based on our draft construction drawings.
what budget would we get the $500,000 from
The 500,000 for what?
for the overall project that's been proposed? About $1,000 per,
It's more than 500.
Yes.
It would be funded out of the REIT taxes, it'd be capital.
It ranges
But
from
it's-
760 to 1.8.
for a 1,200-foot boardwalk? Wow. That's wood.
It's wood.
Some of it's wood.
Wow. Is it paved with gold?
Pardon me?
Is it paved with gold or something?
No, no.
No?
Well, nothing's cheap around here, to tell you the truth.
Maybe we should wait until it is.
So is there other information that would help people before making a decision? Is there other information that you'd like to get either from Ryan or from the park board? Sounds like
I have one question.
I would say we have wiggle room still, it's not December 31st.
The question I have is, for the 3 acres they have listed, what is the usage of it right now?
I
Do you actually have
think
people
it's
that walk
for
through?
coyotes to hide in. I don't think there is a usage, to tell you the
But
truth.
is it designated a park?
It's part of Medina Park. You could walk through as part of the park, but you're going to, slosh through some pretty nasty stuff, blackberries and what have you. But
So
part
it's
of the
currently
park.
zoned.
Pardon?
It's currently a zoned park.
Yeah, we don't need to buy any land, which is really significant. I can't stress that enough.
It's very nice. You have suggested funding source include the King Conservation District, the Stimson Bullitt Foundation, Pendleton Miller Charitable Foundation. What kind of possibility you think we can get them?
That was just a start. That's what the Yesler Swamp Project used as funding sources. They also use Seattle neighborhood coalitions and things like that, but that's what they use. And local donations too. We could put something on our website for local donations, and that would be a way to go. And I think Ryan has broached the subject with the King County Conservation District.
Well, we've got some grant funds that we've already used. We have to apply for.
No, we could reapply.
Yeah, right. The King County does have a conservation fund.
Right.
Yeah, and actually, we haven't really been actively used
Well, this is good reason to be active then, right?
things like this, right?
Does it make sense to see what sort of progress you can get with these organizations for funding before we authorize a check for $30,000 to do the architectural drawings?
We can certainly reach out to them, would be my thoughts.
It seems like that might be a better sequence of how to step through this, to see how much other people's money is out there, and then come to a determination of what the cost to us would be, and then based on that make a decision on the 30,000. Might be a way to go. Just an idea.
Great idea.
Jessica?
Well, I'm intrigued by the educational possibilities of the boardwalk, because it's something that used to be a lot of our land and is actually an important part of water filtration, which we just spent the last hour talking about, but it's something we don't see a lot. So I was just kind of mulling through in my head how we could take advantage of that kind of educational piece, which isn't something we have in many of our public lands around here. We have a lot of recreational public lands. We have much less in the sense of educational public lands. So I was thinking about that, and I really like that aspect of it. I also, someone had already asked and answered whether this is a REIT project, which is the first hurdle with me from
The what project?
a real estate excise tax, a capital project.
Capital improvement, okay.
Which is kind of the first funding hurdle with me, because that money is much more available for that kind of project because it's so tightly controlled in what it can be used. And then I think my question on that would probably be for you, Ryan. Is this then money that would otherwise be a piece of your otherwise allocated parks budget or public works budget? Or would
I
we?
don't have anything budgeted for the boardwalk.
No, what are you looking to give up?
It's a priority issue. Capital projects is always a list, where you've got a longer list of projects and you've got funding to meet them. And so, this would be a question of what priority the council would want to give to it.
A high priority, that's the easy answer. It's the park. Come on.
I think that's a really interesting point about the educational piece of it, because the kids could use a lot could learn a lot walking through there and seeing what is a wetlands and what's the filtration and what animals live there.
They can also hop a bus and go to Mercer, the Mercer Slough.
Yeah, but I think it's nice that the kids can walk here. I thought it was a really good point.
I have a question.
I would agree.
With Ryan. Can we use this as part of stormwater's funding?
Probably Sherry, it's probably the opposite of what the stormwater people want.
But it's a good try, actually. Anything else?
So, Roger's recommendation to ask around on some of those funding
Okay,
options?
Okay, we can do that.
Is that something that people are in favor of?
Maybe some residents will be interested.
And then I think there might be some
Yeah,
families who would be willing to step up for sure.
I think some residents might be willing to step up.
Okay, that's great, good.
I think
Let's
it
keep
would.
this thing moving.
I think it would also be interesting to see, just in general, when we talk about projects like this, what are our other priorities? So what are we bouncing down to do this? That's not really a question for you, Mr. Blasey, but
Right.
just generally, so we can see what we're deciding. Because this sounds great to me. I think it has a lot of potential to be something different and expansive in our park.
And what I appreciate is that the park board has taken the time to find something unique, and you've put your energy into it, and you've planned for years, and you've gone on field trips, and you've really put your energy into it. So I appreciate you doing all of that work.
Looks like a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good trip so far.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, good.
Thank
Good
you.
timing. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Planning Commission, anybody? Mr. Reeves.
I'm Randy Reeves with Planning Commission.
So good to see you.
So we've had a 2-month hiatus, and we haven't met. But we will have a quarterly Planning Commission City Council meeting on September 20th at noon. And then our next meeting will be September 25th, Tuesday at 6 p.m. We know that the LID is going to be something on our really kind of the forefront of the agenda. I have not seen an agenda for the September meeting yet.
Steve and I were actually talking about that this morning. It's coming for next
Great.
week.
So we'll know, and we probably will have a CMP or two here coming up.
Yes.
Great. So that's kind of our status. I do, since the park board's asking for money, I'll just put in a pitch for our urban forestry manual. That was something that came out of the tree code, and I know it's something that's been discussed for quite a while. Clyde Hill has a version of that. Kind of one idea was to use that manual as kind of an interim manual as a reference until we can create our own Medina manual. And Mike, I know you've had some things to say about that in the past. Is there funding for something like that?
Well, we talked about doing something similar to what Clyde Hill had done, where they had essentially a graduate student turn it into their project, was how they got their tree manual done. And so we've been looking into some of those kind of opportunities, rather than paying a consultant $50,000, see if we can figure out a way to have it done kind of the same way the Clyde Hill one was.
I don't think I'm speaking out of turn for the Planning Commission to say that maybe just simply using the Clyde Hill version, something kind of low-hanging fruit, we can publish something like that, plagiarize it, whatever we need to do, until we can create our own manual. So it was one idea we discussed as a group. That's really all I had to say this evening. Any questions?
Questions? So thank you for always looking for best practices and ideas that we can borrow from other jurisdictions, because we are watching our money. And so I really appreciate you doing that, and both with respect to the LID and with respect to the urban forestry manual. So please reach out to whomever you need to for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your work.
Thank you.
Chief Burns, anything emergency preparedness?
Good evening. September is National Emergency Preparedness Month. So every week we're going to be sending out an e-alert, reference topic that we think people can do to be prepared, whether it's an out-of-state contact or looking after your pets or in-house thing. And in your packet you see there's a proclamation for recognizing the month as well as September 15th as the Day of Action. So our next meeting is in October. And currently, as part of the 2018 Great Shakeout exercise in October, we're trying to work with the 3 elementary schools to do a communications drill, to get a couple of our communications people and get them to do a drill on the 18th. So.
Great. Questions? And then you guys are going to look into the CERT Light that Bellevue is offering.
Yep. We're going to get a hold of the chief and, yeah.
Yeah, so just so everybody knows, so there's a long certification process that you can take to become certified as an emergency preparedness person. Bellevue is now offering what's called CERT Light. It's 3 hours?
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot more reasonable.
Yeah, so we're hoping that we can get a lot more of the community members to sign up. And obviously, it's a truncated version of it, but if there is an emergency, we are on our own. So the more people that can sign up, the better. So we're going to ask them if they can come give a presentation in the Points community, because they're taking it around the region. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, if there's no objection, the consent agenda is approved. Hearing none, it's approved by consensus. There are no public hearings tonight, so we'll move into the city business. We're continuing the utility tax ordinance discussion from the August meeting. And Mr. Sauerwein, are you going to start us off?
Yeah, let me get the technology up and running here. There we go. Rather than just talking specifically about the utility tax, I wanted to kind of take a step back and go back up to the 10,000-foot level and talk a little bit more about the general fund in general and try to put the utility tax in context. So what I'd like to do tonight is really 4 things. Is start out with, as I said, what is the general fund? And second, kind of give you a preview of where we're going to be with our discussion about the 2019 budget at the next study session, and talk about the challenges that we're having for the 2019 budget. And then talk a little bit about how the water and sewer utility tax will help us meet those challenges. And then finally, let's look at some next steps, talk about where it is we go from here. So just to jump right into it, I mean, what is the general fund? Well, the general fund covers just about all of the operations you think about when you think about city government. It covers public safety, that's about 50% of our general fund budget for police, fire, and medical aid. Park maintenance, development services, it's administrative services like the city manager and the city clerk. There's the finance department, human resources, facilities, the city attorney, and that of course includes prosecution, indigent defense, and court services as well. Now, you've seen these slides before that Julie's presented to you, but just as a refresher, for the 2018, our general fund revenue sources, we are a property tax dependent city. As you can see, about half of our revenue comes from property taxes. Unlike a lot of other cities, we don't have car dealerships, we don't have a Costco, so our sales tax revenue is significantly less than you might find in other cities. Most of our sales tax revenue comes from construction, and we get some also from the green store and from the nursery, but we don't have really big sources of a sales tax in Medina. Utility taxes are an important but smaller component, and then you can also see permits and services, and our contract with Hunts Point for police services also factors into it. Where we spend our general fund expenses, as I said a moment ago, about half of what we spend for is for police and fire. Central Services makes up a large piece, largely because that includes our IT contract with City of Kirkland. And then, of course, we have development services and parks and the other departments that make up smaller parts of our expenses for general fund. The important thing I want to really stress is that the general fund is people providing services to our citizens. 85% of the money that our general fund spends is for human beings to provide direct services to our citizens. Whether that's police, fire, helping people with passports, whether it's clearing the sidewalks to remove vegetation so people can walk down them. That is what the general fund money goes for. There's not a lot of fluff in this budget, guys. I mean, we pay for people to provide services directly to our citizens. Now, our goal for 2019 is pretty simple. We want to maintain the same level of mandatory and essential services in 2019 that we were in 2018. We've got some challenges. Probably the biggest challenge is some structural issues that our expenses are increasing at about 4 or 5% per year, whereas our total revenues are only going up 2.5% per year. Our largest revenue source, property taxes, are capped at 1% per year. Now, what that means in real terms is that we can only increase our biggest revenue source, half of our revenue, of property taxes by 1% per year. That means about $25,000 in additional property taxes each year, spread across about 1,100 houses. Now, Julie is not here this evening, and she would scream at me if I didn't take the opportunity to show you this slide that she has showed you often before. Whereas 8 cents of every dollar people pay in property taxes actually goes to the city of Medina. When you pay your property tax statement, the vast majority of what you pay goes for schools, for both state and local, and it goes to King County, including the King County Library. Sound Transit and some other things make up a small piece. But again, only 8 cents of every dollar that you pay in property taxes actually goes to the city of Medina. So, you know, our challenge, as I said, there's some limited mechanisms for the city to keep pace. You know, we've already spent down our contingency fund. We've moved all of the levers that we have to maintain service levels just in 2018. And rather than listing them all here, Julie gave me a 2-page list. And we can go through this in some detail at our September 24th meeting. But suffice it to say that we've moved just about every lever that we have. Now, to give you an idea of some of the challenges that we're facing, I just wanted to focus a little bit on fire services. As we've discussed previously, we receive fire services from the city of Bellevue at a significantly lower price than what fire services are being provided in other parts of the county through other consortiums. We're getting a good deal, but we're not, you know, immune to things like labor contracts. So, for example, Bellevue was unable to settle their labor contract with their firefighters for 3 years. They've now reached a settlement, but that means that there's 3 years' worth of back wage increases that have to be paid to their firefighters. So our anticipated cost for 2019 was $770,000. We're actually going to be paying a projected cost of $811,000. Now, I say that having said we had a rather frank conversation with Bellevue Fire Department last Wednesday afternoon, the other cities that contract with them, Points Communities, and the city of Newcastle. And I think we may be able to get that number reduced. But understand that that's $41,000 more than what we were expecting, which was on top of about another $30,000 increase from 2018 to 2019. In other words, we're going to spend on fire services alone about $71,000 more in 2019 than we did in 2018. That's 3 times the amount of additional revenue we're going to be getting from property taxes just to cover the nut for fire services alone. So these are the challenges we're facing, guys. Now, this has created a gap in our general fund budget. The 2019 proposed budget to maintain those mandatory and essential services, we're about $359,000 out of balance as of last week. Julie and I spent some time this morning working, and we believe that we've made a pretty good dent in finding that other the $194,000. But the estimated revenue from water and sewer utility taxes would be a big help at $165,000. So really, between the water and sewer utility tax revenue in 2019 and other efficiencies and cost cutting that we're able to go through. And again, we'll give you the details of this more at our September 24th meeting when we bring you a balanced budget. But we think we can reach that $194,000. Now, we were asked at the last meeting, what's the actual impact on a family of water and sewer utility taxes? Well, a 6% tax, as I said, will generate $165,000 in 2019. You pay your water bill to Bellevue every 2 months. Seems like most people we've talked to are paying bills every 2 months of somewhere between about $200 and $400 every 2 months. And so for if you have a $200 every 2 month bill, there'd be $12 in tax, and if it was $400, it would be $24 in tax every 2 months. So really our next steps are at the September 24th City Council session. We're going to present you with a balanced budget for 2019, showing how we're able to meet the challenges that we've talked about this evening. And also the FCS group is going to be taking an hour to present to you their 10-year financial plan. So you'll be able to see the 2019 budget, but also what's going to happen over the next 10 years. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions anybody might have.
What's the difference between a utility tax and a franchise fee?
The difference is really in what the fee is for. A utility tax is a straight-ahead tax that a city can impose. A franchise fee is a use tax. The franchise fee is for the use of our right-of-ways. So when we say to Comcast Cable, you can make money in Medina by stringing your wires through our city, we essentially are charging them for the use of our right-of-ways.
Which they then go and put on the customer bill.
Excuse me?
Which they then go and put on the customer bill.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
How much are our our salary costs?
Our salaries are going up about 3.6%, which is a cost of living increase based on the CPI. And most of our employees are represented by bargaining units, so it's controlled by their contracts.
So how much is total per year?
Let
me get back to you with that answer. I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, he said if the budget is 6 million and 85% is people, rough and tough, are you saying 85% is 6 million? I mean, is that a way to look at it?
That's one way to look at it, but rather than just doing that kind of rough math, I'd rather be able to give you an exact number.
Because I think that's the one we cannot change, right? Or can we change that one?
Well, ultimately, the city council controls staff salaries. You do it in 2 ways. You do it through contracts, and then you also do it through budgeting.
Jessica, David?
I think as being part of the finance committee, one of the things that we've been able to spend a little bit of time just delving in a little bit more into some of the presentation and then some of the numbers behind everything. And I think Mike has hit upon like the key things about this. I think one of the things that Julie's been really good at is now, instead of looking at it whenever we do budget, we look at, okay, from a year to year standpoint, let's be a little bit more forward looking and let's look at how can we make sure that their city is fiscally and financially operating operating well going forward. We know that several other cities, Julie's been mentioning that she's been going to Mercer Island, to hear some of the conversation that Mercer Island's been having in terms of the city hall with some of the residents and with other experts in the area in terms of how do we address some of these issues. So it's not just Medina that's having this conversation now, it's other cities within Washington State as well that's doing so. So I think it's important, for us, we've been fortunate to be able to sit down with Julie, to be able to just deep dive a little bit more in terms of ask her questions over the couple hour sessions that we've had. And I think it's a matter of, this is a time where we get to actually be able to share all the information in terms of the levers that she's been talking about, how city finances, government finances work in terms of how we get the revenues, the top line, and how we do the costs, and how we're looking at a trend that we do need to address at some point. And we'd rather be able to address this now as a city versus having a significant issue going forward.
Yeah, I agree with what David said. One thing we've talked about a lot in those meetings too has been, in recent years, we've used a lot of, or the city has used a lot of Band-Aids to kind of keep things moving, just moved money over from this line item to that line item, or spent down all the reserves. And the problem we're facing for 2019, as I understand it, is we don't have any more of those sort of Band-Aids left. We're just out of money to do that. And so one of the other questions that we have asked a lot is, like David said, alluding to Mercer Island and all that, what are other communities doing so that they can balance their budget? We don't think the residents of Medina want to lose our independent police department, for example, or some of the other amenities in the parks that we're accustomed to getting. So our question has been all along, how do we get to a position where we can keep those things? And one of the things that has come up is this utility tax, where we've asked, what are our surrounding communities paying? And it appears that our surrounding communities are paying about this 6%. I don't know if anybody else has the sheet.
There's a sheet attached to the back of your PowerPoint presentation that lists, this is something that Nancy put together a couple of years ago, that lists all of the cities, and you'll see that the majority of them are at 6%. That's the statutory maximum that cities can go to without going out for a vote, that city councils have the authority to implement.
So that's what we've been looking for, is ways to preserve what we have without causing a drastic increase or an increase that's out of line with what we think citizens would expect to pay if they live somewhere else. And when I look at this, I'm pretty impressed that Medina's been able to keep from paying this all this time. I mean, at least holding it off as long as possible is a good goal. So I think that's where we are in the Finance Committee.
So I appreciate the extra time you've put in helping to study the issue and identify the levers and get us down to this one lever that's available. Are there other questions or comments from people? No? Well, I appreciate also, Mike, that you spent some time today trying to find efficiencies, and you were able to find some efficiencies. And I agree that I'm not in a position to support cutting anything that's either critical or important to the residents. And if this bump will help us balance 2019 while we continue our strategic longer-term planning for what's a system where we've got, inflation raising at 4%, our salaries are going up 3%, employee benefits costs are going 5%, and our revenue is only going up 2%. That's something we have to fix. But for 2019, this is the lever we have that can get us to a balanced budget. So I appreciate the time you put into finding it.
And I guess I would echo too what Cindy just said, that we also spent a lot of time in Finance Committee complaining, for lack of a better word, and looking for places where we, in our infinite wisdom, think that perhaps some things could be cut. And Mike and Julie have taken that really seriously and have really been looking for stuff, and we're looking forward to moving on that side as well to try to bring it in line. It's a challenge.
But I see this, they're going to have efficiency and cost cutting, $194,000. That's almost $200,000 saving, right?
Yeah.
You have that planned in there. But we still need the utility to make the gap.
Right, you make a good point, which it partially fills the gap. It doesn't completely fill the gap.
You
So
can cut
they're
too
going to
many
have to go
cuts
back
the
and,
bones, right?
yeah. Okay, is there any further discussion? Is there any motion?
in order to continue the conversation, I move to adopt ordinance number 962, amending chapter 5.0, 5.04 of the Medina Municipal Code to continue the annual efficiency tax rate of 6% and to add water and sewer utilities to the revenue code and to remove the recurring expiration date on such revenues.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Mike, and this might be a question for Mike and Scott. If we do want to change something, what is the time frame in terms of, say, like we make some we find some additional levers, or we find some additional things? What's the process, and how quickly is it able to be able to reverse that? And, I mean, obviously, I think the ideal state is to not have any utility tax, and to get to that point. And I think it behooves us to really have that conversation to make sure that it's evaluated every year in terms of that. So if we find some additional levers, or we won't need this as part of the budget. Oh, somehow we found a pot of gold in that park area or so. What can we do in terms of being able to reverse that, and how quickly would we be able to do that?
Well, I understand that part of what you did this evening was eliminate a sunset clause, which was on the utility tax, which meant that every year that had to be reviewed. Really, what removing the sunset clause, all that does is it allows us to not have to change our utility tax with the utility companies as they collect it every single year. You, as the council, reserve the right at any time to change a utility tax. We're going to have a discussion about a levy lit increase next year. And part of that discussion, I'm certain, will include, do we want to move revenue from utility taxes onto property taxes, or vice versa? I think that discussion is going to take place. But understand that you, as the council, reserve the right to change our methods of tax collection. I mean, you haven't done anything this evening that's chiseled in stone forever and a day. I mean, it's certainly something that you can readdress and rediscuss at any time.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
can I make a point? We have discussed these issues at the South City Association many times. Almost 80% of the cities, they have the same issues of the expense cannot meet, the revenue cannot meet the expense. And so for Medina, in special cases, because we only get 8 cents of a dollar if we receive the real estate taxes, and that means for us to raise 1% tax, that's for me will be many thousands of dollars, but that only $20,000 for the whole city come to City of Medina. It's a very inefficient process for us to live, for the city to live on the raise of the real estate tax. But for utility, because all these things will come 100% to us to make our shortfall. And for the city, we have the obligation to balance our budget. This is our city's obligation. So to fulfill our obligation, we have to find some more steady resources. And as I see from many of the residents' letters, they were very concerned about raising the taxes. But I just want to make sure people understand, and this is facing by all the cities, not only us. And everybody do this way, and so just hope that citizens can understand it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thanks very much for the discussion. Going to the city manager's report. Do you want to start with Chief Burns?
Yeah, sure. Steve, good start. While Steve's getting up there, one thing I definitely want to report to the council is, unfortunately, we extended an offer to someone to be our new planning manager, and unfortunately she accepted a position with another organization. So Steve and I are going to be meeting with the headhunter agency that we worked with this last time tomorrow morning, and trying to figure out what our plan B is going to be. But I'd also like to just really thank everybody who helped participate in that process. Your work was not in vain. I think we found a great candidate. I think she just decided that she preferred a different job offer rather than the one in Medina.
That's too bad.
Good evening. My report's for August, and last month I actually talked about Medina Days and Seafair, so I was not going to cover it tonight unless anybody had any questions about it. Okay. It's not in the report, but we had our third burglary of the year. An e-alert went out. It was up the street on Evergreen Point. It was a forced entry, and they ended up stealing a car. And usually with the forced entry, that's a bit of a concern just because usually most of our burglaries and car prowls are through unlocked doors. Now, the good thing is we haven't had any other reports of burglaries or car prowls after that, but it just puts the guys on high alert and just to keep an eye out. The car prowls we did have for the month, we had 3. They were through unlocked doors, and one of the cars had a high value item, and so I will continue to preach that we need to lock our cars and hide our valuable items. One thing I talk about is training. Our last officer is going through crisis intervention training. The state a couple years ago mandated that all law enforcement officers have 8 hours of training, but since King County offers a 40-hour class at no cost to us other than our time, I thought it was beneficial to put all of our officers through that. A lot of reasons. We deal with, chemical dependent people, mental health issues, and so the more training in this area we can get, it lowers the risk for the city and the department, and it just makes the officers a little bit more prepared. City of Bellevue actually has a mental health crisis team that we work with. In certain instances, we get them to come out and work with our officers. Back to school started this last couple of weeks. Officers have been out. We've had a real positive involvement with the kids. It's one of the things I like our day shift officers, along with the captain and I, to get out there. And then the last thing is October 3rd is National Coffee with a Cop Day. And so since we don't have our coffee shop up in Clyde Hill, the Green Store I've contacted them, and we're going to do it there. So it's going to be 8:30-10, October 3rd. I'll get some information on it. This is the 3rd annual Coffee with a Cop. I like it, it's good to see people. It's informal. People are real comfortable to ask questions maybe they wouldn't be in other areas. So more on that. So any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Did the gentleman Saturday night have any stolen property on him?
The one you sent me the picture on? Nope.
Okay.
No. He was, but I appreciate reporting stuff like that. It's good. So the question is, we had a person at the park and ride, actually the bus portion. That's technically not ours, but we still patrol it. And along the lines, we patrol all the parks after hours, during the hours. And
911, I guess, notified you.
What's that?
I guess 911 notified you guys. So.
Yeah. So, and that's what I like. I'll be sending some information out about suspicious activity reporting, kind of what you saw. It's good for our officers to go and contact individuals, just because even if we don't get criminal activity, it puts people on notice that they're being watched. And that's how we really tighten the community up, is when people come in that don't, they act suspicious. If they get contacted by an officer, and we don't take everybody to jail. In fact, there's times we can't even ID people if we don't have a reason to, but it puts them on notice that they're being watched. So that was a good call. All right. Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Osada.
Good evening. Wanted to give you an update on the 84th project. As you guys probably have noticed, there's not too much activity out there right now. It was due to the strike. So the paving schedule has been pushed back. It was supposed to be paved, I believe it was like August 28th. But since the strike, I don't know if you guys heard about the 302.
Some people may not have.
Crane operators, yeah, heavy equipment operators.
Oh, okay.
But you had the 302, which is King County, and then 618 or something like that. They're the South End, Pierce County union, and they also went on strike. So everybody, all the plants, asphalt plants, concrete plants, they kind of shut down. It delayed the project, which is fine. It was ahead of schedule anyways. Now we're just trying to get back on the schedule to do the final pave. So we just have one more lift to do. Hopefully in the next couple weeks. I haven't heard back from the contractor to see when we're going to be doing that. When we do that, now that school is in session, we're planning to do a detour route. And I'll send out an alert on the detour for that once we get a schedule. There's some bad news on it. I got an email saying that the signal poles have been delayed an additional month. They're not even going to go out. They're actually going out for paint. They're going to leave the shop on 11/9, and that takes a week or so. So I would guess that our signal system is not even going to go in till after Thanksgiving, which is quite a delay.
So when do you think the rest of the work, assuming that the strike is settled?
The
rest of
strike
work
is
will-
settled.
Oh, the strike
It
is
just settled last Thursday, I
Oh,
believe.
okay.
So everyone is back to work, but they have a backlog now. So we need to find out, what is their priority, and try to get in
Get
there
a new
before
date from them.
Well, we have there's a paving window. TIB requires you to follow state standards, which is at the end of October, you're not allowed to pave. So, but I don't think we're going to hit that deadline. I'm hoping in the next couple weeks.
Are there penalties for the contractor if they don't?
No, we had to extend their working days because of the strike.
Okay.
It's in the contract.
Oh, force majeure.
Yeah, but I get that, but if they don't get it done by October 31st, I mean, are there penalties?
No, because they lost 17 working days for the strike. So.
What was their schedule?
And originally
finished
they
at?
weren't going to pave till like about 1st of October or so, or 2nd, something like that. But there's been extensions to their contract days.
Can you get us a list of those contract extensions, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
We can do that. So currently, we're 71% billed on the project, and they've used up about 68% of the working days. But we are going to have to put a hold on the project, a suspension, till the signal poles get in, once they get their landscaping done. So I'm guessing that the entire project will be suspended for about a 1-month period, could be 2. I'm guessing sometime in mid-October till the end of November.
So, I'm sorry, just to be clear, so everything will be done when?
Everything, as in the signal also,
Yes.
you're looking at December,
Okay,
first week in December maybe.
okay. And if I heard you correctly, they finish paving, and then it's landscaping, and then it's the signal. Is that correct? That's the sequence?
So they'll have, within the next few weeks, they'll have the final overlay, the asphalt overlay done, the striping done, and most of the irrigation and the topsoil, I believe, is already installed. They just need to do all the plantings now.
Okay.
So that'll be done prior to the signal. The signal will be the last thing. And then we also have to remove the old signal system and then fill in the sidewalks for that. So for the next couple months, we're going to see asphalt in the corners, in the sidewalk sections. Until they get,
But the majority of it will be done except for the signals.
it'll be, 85% done, somewhere around there.
So if it's all done with signals, first week of December, everything but the signals would be done sometime before October.
Correct.
Okay, mid-October maybe? I mean,
Yeah, I would say they're not going to do the tree plantings until October, so a couple weeks for that. So mid-October, I think they'll be pretty much, the site will look pretty finished, other than the intersection.
okay,
And then a new
by
signal will-
mid-October.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, I'm happy to report that the sidewalk trip hazard project is done. I went in 3 phases over the summer. We fixed 653 locations. And then our next step now is, for our budget next year, we'll start doing our isolated ADA upgrades. And then we'll come back and fix some of those areas that were heaved that they couldn't do the cutting on. And I think that's it. Oh, and this project out here, this was actually delayed 1 week. They were supposed to start September 4th. They just started, is it today?
This morning,
Today,
yeah.
yeah.
What are they doing?
We're redoing the parking lot. This is kind of phase 2 to that sidewalk project out here. We're making the police area bigger, doing some storm drainage improvements, and overlaying it.
Really nice work on the sidewalks, Ryan, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for prioritizing that.
Any questions?
Questions? Thanks a lot.
Great, thanks.
Just to follow up on the work out here, in 2011, when our building was reconfigured and reconstructed and added onto, that rebuild of the parking lot was to be part of that, but I can't remember why that didn't happen at the time, but Joe Willis promised me that he was going to do it, and here it is, finally getting done.
Was it the sidewalk supposed to go into this winter?
Yeah, that was all part of it. So, I feel brand new. I haven't been here in 2 months, so if you haven't remembered my name, it's Steve
Hello,
Wilcox.
Mr. Wilcox.
I'm the Development Services Director. Vacations and things like that have kept me out. Mike gave you the most important, most impactful news about Development Services, which is their planning manager candidate backed out. It's most impactful because so many things are geared around having a qualified professional planner to help us out. I can see that I'm going to have to kind of reorganize my own thoughts on how to get these, get some things through, because we have a big planning commission program that can't be stopped. We've got the LID, of course. We've got a work plan. We've got, we've got a calendar that's going to be developed and reflect all of that. I was really, honestly, I was hoping that we'd have a qualified planner in here to help work on that and develop that. I thought that'd be that person's job, but that can't wait. So we're going to do it, and we're going to get that rolling. And then planning manager comes eventually. Maybe they'll change, they'll have better ideas, but we're going to get that going now. We have to. So we have some big things on the work plan, and we're going to talk to the planning chair and the deputy chair and start working that out. So that's mainly my news. We're also looking for a deputy building official, as you might know. We've had 4 candidates. One of them is qualified, but he lives in Arizona. So we'll see how that works out. Nice guy, talked to him on the phone. Like I said, very qualified. His name is Cody, and he seems like the type of guy that might want a horse if he was riding around the area doing his inspections. But like I say, we'll see how this works out. That person's really kind of key to this whole reorganization too, and the fact that we want to improve service. We want to cut back on our consultants' use of our consultants. We want to improve service for the citizens and be more direct. Hopefully cut back costs. Honestly, 2019 is going to be a bit of a transition, like 2018 is. But I can see that happening, and controlling our consultants, controlling the cost of our consultants through the use of staff. I think it's appropriate. I hope it works out. It's ultimately a decision of funding and support for that, but we'll see. But that person is really key, because that person's going to be out there doing CMP inspections, TESC inspections, regular building inspections, helping out at the counter, getting things through the counter that takes 2 weeks now. We're going to do it in a day or less. Things like that.
pretty important, I think. So hopefully that'll all work out. Right now, we're just sort of doing the job and getting things done, and hoping for the best, answering the emails and the calls and so forth, and keeping the fire down a little bit. But not complaining. It's all fun. That's really about it. I guess one of the big things we got to do is electronic plan review too. That's going to be a big transition. I'm meeting with City of Bellevue next week and Mercer Island, hopefully within 2 or 3 weeks. They've got an innovative process over there. Bellevue is really the kind of the leader in all of this, and they've actually provided classes and so forth, and they're going to let me speak with the people who are leading their process. And we're talking about a high level, not the details, but the high level of making this happen, getting a calendar together. What do we need to do, the basic steps that, I can actually come back here to you and say, here's what we're looking at for actually having this happen. Right now I'm not there, and they can help with that. So that's kind of where we are. Any questions for me?
Questions?
I was just going to make a comment. I received, I think, about 2 or 3 comments over the summertime, unsolicited, from residents and neighbors, just saying, in their opinion, how better the department is running and their interaction with it. So I just wanted to pass that along to you, to say thank you and nice job. And people seem, at least folks I've spoken to, seem pretty happy. So thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
We're going to do our best. Give me
Absolutely.
about 12 or 14 months.
Yeah, some head count. I'm sure you'll do great.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for stepping up, and I know you're probably disappointed, as we all are, that this candidate didn't work out. So I appreciate you continuing to keep the trains running. I know it's a lot of responsibility. I appreciate your work.
Well, as Kristen said, it's an opportunity.
We like that about you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
Just a really couple quick things I wanted to mention to the council. One anecdotal is, you'll remember during recently we had public records request for not just emails, but also for text messages. And after we did some research, and you heard from the city attorney, text messages that are business related are in fact public records, just like emails. So in order to address this situation, Amy did some research and found a company that has an app for that. Actually, you now can put an app on your phone that will be a second telephone number and a second text message bank for your phone. And it's all just on your same phone. You do it through an app. It's over IP. And it allows us to use those, to have that be our work email, our work text messages, and our work telephone number. And all of the phone logs are logged on a server, and all of the text messages are logged on a server so that they're searchable, just like emails. And it only costs $20 a month, and so thank you, Amy, for coming up with really a fairly elegant solution to a problem that we're facing. Right now, the department heads and I are kind of being the guinea pigs for this. We're going to make sure that it works. The tech support is out of Israel, so when you call tech support, they do try to talk to you in Hebrew before you explain to them that you have to speak English. But once we've kind of had ourselves as guinea pigs for a couple of months, we'll be offering this to city council members who also would like to have this available to them. And we'll be sending you out a new list of all of our phone numbers that will have the new work phone numbers on it. So in the future, when you text us or when you call us, we'll be asking you to use those rather than our personal cell phone numbers.
And are you anticipating that council and planning commission would get those numbers as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that we'll make it available to you. I mean, the bottom line is that I hate carrying 2 phones, and so I don't do it. And this allows you to effectively carry 2 phones, even though you've only got 1 smartphone.
I have reservation for that. Our cell phone is our privacy. It get hacked all the time, and the things you add another with some foreign countries from Israel's locked to the server, I think it's not invasion of privacy, put this way.
It's not required, though. It's not required.
Yeah, I'm saying we can call the city halls, have them transfer to you. That's fine. That's a public. It's all log. We don't need to sacrifice our own privacy just for the sake of some strange person want to search on the things that we never done, and I really call you.
Well,
The point is, we can have, I just don't think, I'm saying the communication and get hacked left and right, and I'm working on it and get huge issues, especially with foreign countries. And of course, Israel is a friendly country, but I wouldn't to have another things on my personal cell phone. And we can call, if they feel uncomfortable for us to talk to you, we can call the 800 number, say whatever the City Hall's number had then transferred to you. That will be fine. We have nothing to hide.
Okay, so it's not required, but
no,
people
it's-
can if they want to.
It's not required, and just a little bit of an insight into the gallows humor of city managers. We usually joke about the fact that now that our text messages and voicemail and phone logs have all become public records, what's next? Are we going to have to tape record every conversation in our office? So,
That's what Alexa's for.
it is the way it is. This is the world we live in.
And the other thing is, if they're checking on your phones already, have who is calling you, that's enough. Why do they want to check us?
Well, like I said, it's not mandatory. It's just, like I said, we're making the service available if council members are interested in it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Any other questions for Mike?
And then Amy wanted to just give you a quick update on what's happening with the website.
Great.
The website is, we're mostly there. We're at a point of, we've come to an agreement on our homepage. Now we're working on linking up department pages, and we're hoping to do like a soft release within the next month.
Thanks for all your work on that.
Yeah, it's
And
been a
then-
challenge.
And then the last item is just the list of upcoming meetings is included in your packet. And just remind everybody that on Tuesday, September 18th, we have the short course on local land use planning. For folks who haven't been through it before, or even those that have, really recommend that you sign up for it.
So Amy, are we going to have a chance to take a look at the site before you do a soft launch?
I can send you the link.
Just so we can kind of
Just
poke
so that
around
you
and
can-
give some UI feedback and things like that?
Yeah, I can send it out to you tomorrow.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Anyone else other than Roger who'd like to be a tester? Okay, thanks.
I
for-
will, if it's not too hard, Amy.
I'll just forward the link.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay,
That will conclude my report.
great. Thank you very much. Okay, public comment period. Comment period is limited to 10 minutes. Speaker comments limited to 1 minute per person. Is there anyone who'd like to speak? Come on up. Ms. Elchin.
I think a couple of you know why I'm here. I'll just briefly fill everybody in. I live right next to Fairweather Park and have for almost 11 years now. And just in the last, month or so, I've had several incidences of both physically running into somebody in the park who's using it as a bathroom, and then my dog has gotten into human feces 3 times in the last couple weeks. And don't ask me how I know the difference. There's definitely a very pungent difference between dog feces and human feces. Anyway, I've been reporting it as requested by the police department, but I know this is a huge can of worms that obviously is not going to get fully open tonight in the 1 minute that I have to talk. But I really just want to know if there's been any discussion at all about how to handle this situation. I mean, it's a huge deal, putting in bathrooms, the whole discussion about where they go, and people want them and people don't want them. But the fact of the matter is, like, I walked with my 5-year-old son and my dog into Fairweather today at 2:30 and walked right into a guy who was peeing against a tree. And I told him, I said, you can't do that here, and I'm gonna call the police. And he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. He's like, I'm from Portland. I didn't know. And I'm just like, I'm pretty sure you probably can't pee in parks in Portland either. Like, you can't do this. So it's happening all the time. And it's not that I don't feel safe necessarily. I mean, it's the middle of the day. It didn't necessarily feel like a drastic safety issue to me, but it's kind of gross. And I don't really want my kids to have to experience that. And so, again, huge can of worms. I just want to know, like, signage would be great. Signage up on the trail by the big, huge fair weather sign that went in, directing people to keep moving. I don't know what the answer is, but it's not happening just once or twice. It's happening on a very regular basis, and I see it like almost every day. So I don't know where to go from there, but I just wanted you to know that it's an issue, and I'm sure there's other people that are reporting it besides me. I don't know, but.
Well, I reported somebody using heroin on the staircase at the bus stop the other day.
Well, and also I had posted something on Facebook, and I can't remember who it was responded, saying that she and her daughter encountered feces in the elevator coming up from the bus stop. So whether or not Medina wants a bathroom at the bus stop or on the trail, people are already using our park as a bathroom. Like it's already happening. We're already at that point.
But they're also using it to shoot up, and so a bathroom becomes another place to shoot up. So.
I get it, but something needs to be done.
So thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And we do take it as an action item for Mike and Chief to, can you get back to her with the actions that you've been taking? I know you've been taking action on it, and I think if you can get back to her with the action, that'd be great.
And I think most people don't know that that you want it reported, because in that Facebook thread, people are like, well, by the time I called, he was already gone, and so, I mean, I think it's just an information gathering thing at this point to know how frequently it's happening. And so I'm always encouraging people to at least call and report it, even if it's too late, just so we know the frequency that it's happening. But just from my own perspective, it's been very frequent.
So,
and I have a friend that walks dogs in that park, and she sees it all the time also.
Is it in the park? Is it in the tree? It's on the
Yeah, so this
is
guy
it in
today
the, is
literally,
it in the trees,
he
or is
rode
it?
his bike in,
Uh-huh.
he took an immediate right. So he rode his bike into the main trail entrance and took an immediate right, so kind of like parallel to where the tennis courts are, and maybe 30 feet in, just found one of the big trees and was just peeing right there. And then hopped on his bike and took off. So, and hopefully it'll get better when the weather starts getting bad. But I'm guessing on the weekends it's happening pretty frequently, because people are stopped there. I mean, there's 25 people up on the lid at any given time just hanging out.
So I had a question, maybe for Mike. I had read some comments, and a woman had posted saying that when WSDOT was originally designing the lid on Evergreen Point Road, there was at the time the design included a restroom or restrooms for the lid, and this person said that Medina residents didn't want it then, and that's why it wasn't included. Do you know if that's accurate or not? Do you know that's true?
I have no idea. I can, this is before my time, but it's my understanding that the design of the lid went through a number of different derivations, and they had a whole series of design charrettes and public meetings. So at one point in the process, there very well could have been a different design.
Okay.
It was probably a long time ago, though, Roger.
So
I'm simply reporting what I read.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know what the King County laws state, but I mean, if we could even put signage up at the entrance of Fairweather Park trails that say that they can be fined for that, I mean, can we fine them for that if they get caught?
So we're working on, there's an ordinance that we're going to update our ordinance.
Okay.
Which we did some research on, but I don't want to reinvent the wheel, so stealing somebody else's and then having Scott look at it just to make sure that it's legal. There's things we are working on, and the point I like having it reported is we already walked through the parks. I mean, Fairweather, we were walking before. And I know this is, we're not supposed to answer, but we do a number of things already. But the thing that helps when it's reported is we prioritize what we're doing.
Sure.
And the more reports we get, and I mean, honestly, we don't get a lot of reports.
That's probably most
So I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It's just when we're limited on what we can do, and I don't want to commit to something that is unrealistic.
Sure.
So that's why I said report it, because then it gives me a good idea of.
And again, I think most people don't think to report it because it's too late. But I mean, even just because when you walk into Fairweather Park, there's a sign right there saying that the park is not monitored already. There's a sign that says that it's not, I don't know what the exact wording is, but it basically is telling people that there's no upkeep and nobody's walking through the park, and, enter at your own risk. So that in and of itself tells people that nobody's probably going to walk in on them besides some person walking their dog.
You know what, maybe we can change the sign to say we routinely patrol.
Yeah, I mean, I think starting there is
We just
something.
changed the language.
I mean, obviously, we're not going to, it's such a bigger issue this whole, do we want a bathroom, do we not want a bathroom, it's like way bigger than this conversation, but I think signage is somewhere that you can start that doesn't cost a lot of money and it's easy, and you know, if you even put a sign up above that's just an arrow that's just like keep going, like closest bathroom is Montlake, or you know, whatever.
Is it possible to come back at maybe the next meeting or the meeting after, or even have a study session where we talk about the lid, the bathroom, the bikes that don't stop, the parking where they're not supposed to, and the drug use? I think we need a comprehensive discussion about that area again.
Well, I think that's really a good idea.
Can we please add it to an upcoming session?
Maybe a study session, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
I mean, from my perspective, I don't live that far from Jennifer. Like, we have a much better bird's eye view of the actual like trails part of the park. And aside from teenagers kind of coming and going out of there, we don't see any of like the questionable bus stop people I have not seen end up down in the trails. So I think more of the issue there is just this restroom issue.
I think
and
it
then
all depends on what side of the lid you're on.
teenagers. Yeah, sure.
And there are different groups of people that we have to deal with different problems, right? So I think that's part of what these guys have been
And I mean, I guess
working on.
another question is like, obviously the bus stop down the stairs or down the elevator is Washstrat. I'm assuming, I don't know who owns that land. Like, why can't there be a bathroom down there? And then people don't even come up and like direct people down there instead of, I mean, I don't want people directed into the park. Never in a million years would I agree to put a bathroom in the park, but like up above or down below or down at the bus stop, it just seems a little more than people don't even come up. Anyway.
So thank you for bringing it to our attention, and I'm sorry that
Yeah.
that's happening to
Thank
you.
you, yeah.
And they are working on it, and we'll have a study session to address all of the different
Yeah.
people concerns and the crime concerns.
And maybe
the-
even on the Facebook page, the police department Facebook page, someone could just post, please do report it, you know, even if the person is already gone, just so you can get a sense of how frequently it's happening.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ms. Elchin. Okay. Anyone else? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll close public comment period. We're going to adjourn into executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.110. It will be approximately 10 minutes. Up to 15 minutes. So if everyone else could please clear the room, we'll move into executive session. Thank you all. Could everybody turn off their mics, please? Okay, exiting executive session at 8:08. We're back into regular session. If there's nothing further and no objection, we are adjourned. Hearing none, we're adjourned. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, just when a final signed copy.